For although they,
knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened.
amen.
How many people guys have became fools?
Yep. In today's, there too many blanks here, but they traded,
Effort, and they exchanged
exchanged the,
the goodness.
actually it means his brightness, his shining, his glory.
They exchanged the glory of
It's
the immortal God
very good.
for an for
Pictures.
for images
Hmm.
resembling man,
Yeah, man that dies. That's right. This is man.
um,
God's immortal, and we are
mortal men,
mortal.
and by
Uh,
or not by.
This is what they exchange it for. They exchange it for images, and those images resemble mortal man, and so they also resemble these kind of things. These are creatures that God's made here. These fly,
Birds
birds, and
and animals,
animals, and these are crawling on the ground.
uh, crawly things,
Yeah,
or
it's close.
uh,
Uh, there's another word for crawling. Um, we'll call people this who act very offensive. We'll say that guy's a total.
oh,
Sometimes people think, "Man, he makes me really uncomfortable. He acts really
actually crazy,
close." Uh, Another word for crawling around.
creeping
There you go.
things.
Creeping things. Mhm. Exchange the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Um, I think this is a good time to say, and we need to say it often, that there are people out there who claim they're atheists. They claim they don't have a God, but they're lying because they may not try not to recognize the true God. They may not want Him part of their lives. They try to shut Him out and suppress the truth about God. But something is most important in their lives. Something is.
Hating God.
Maybe. But for a lot of people, the most important thing in their life is themselves. It's all about me. And so there's an image resembling mortal man. They're instead of worshiping God, they're worshiping themselves. Some people worship their children. Some people worship their parents. Some people worship their husband, their wife. Some people worship their job. Some people worship money. Some people worship, you can go on down the line, all kinds of idols that people have. But most of the time, I think it's mortal man. I think it's self. And it just doesn't work. Uh, they don't want the glorious immortal God in their lives. They want to come up with their own kind of thinking, and every time we leave God out, our thinking gets messed up. Every time it's futile. Our futile minds become futile. Our thinking becomes darkened. We become fools, even though they think we're very wise. So He's warning us, and uh, and so everybody's got some kind of God. In Rome, they'd borrowed from the Greeks the pantheon. They had all kinds of gods, but at the top of that pantheon, as far as they were concerned, in Rome was Caesar himself. He called himself the supreme being, and people had to worship Caesar. Christians wouldn't do it. They said, no, we're not going to worship mortal man. We're not going to worship all these. They had some things that looked like other men's and that they worshiped, these Greek gods, and some Romans borrowed from them. And then they had some creatures that looked like a combination of man and birds, kind of like a strange bird man, or a man and an animal, or just all kinds of things, animals, birds, creeping things, all kinds of weird looking gods. None of them, all of them are idols. None of them had any power. So it was foolish for Christians to say, we're not going to give up the true God. So they got in trouble for that. Many of them were killed for it because they wouldn't worship Caesar. They exchanged the glory of the immortal God. These are the fools. They exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Can you do
And
it?
exchanged the glory of God for,
Big, big.
they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images of mortal man, birds, animals, and creeping
That's
things.
it. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. You're getting this stuff really well. You guys want to say anything before I pray? Prayer request?
Um, it just we were looking at this at CarMax yesterday. It was a 2015 Ford Focus because Dad he goes up there for the auction stuff.
Mhm.
We were able to win that us.
Wow. So it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I don't know what else he's ever won, but I asked him if he won that specific car.
Yeah, he did.
So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. 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 Well, I'm thankful for you. It's great. Ready to pray? Father, thank you so much for these boys. Thank you for you for being an awesome God, an awesome Father. Lord, you're good to us in so many ways. You bless us in so many ways, and we thank you that you blessed Cole, his dad, and his family with that vehicle, and for causing that to work well. Lord, I pray you just bless them with that vehicle. And Lord, I thank you for this verse reminding us that the people out there who are trying to deny you, who want to leave you out of their lives, who try to figure out how to think without you, that Lord, you've told us very clearly, they always muddled their thinking. They're confused. They're futile in their thinking. Their foolish hearts are darkened. And Lord, they claim to be wise, but they're really fools. And you're the one that calls them that. And Lord, they foolishly exchanged your glory, the glory of you, the immortal God. They exchange your glory for images in their own minds of themselves, or images that resemble other human beings, maybe, or maybe birds or animals or creeping things or just other things. Lord, we know we got people with all kinds of gods, things that are most important to them. And Lord, I pray that somehow you would help people wake up and realize you are God. Help us to be useful in your hands to help other people find you. Lord, our nation is in big, big trouble. We need you worse than ever. But most people in this country seem like they don't really recognize that fact. So I pray there might be a spiritual awakening. And I pray that we would not be tempted to ever make anything besides you into a little God. Lord, we know that you are a great God, but we can be guilty of making little foolish things into idols, and we don't want to be idolaters, Lord. We want to worship you, the true God, all the time. Pray that as we continue to look at ACT stuff and look a little bit at the reading test today, that you'd help these boys learn as much as they can to get ready for the ACT, help them to remember what they're learning, the techniques, the tactics, the strategies, and to do well on the ACT. So thank you for this time, and help us to be a blessing to each other and to you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, 35 minutes and 40 questions. Does that remind you of anything?
The reading part.
Yeah, it is the reading part. It's also the science part. It's 35 questions and 40. I mean, 35 minutes and 40 questions. I'm pretty sure it was
Isn't
it.
it the other way around?
No, I think it's 35 minutes and 40 questions on the science.
40 questions and 35. Wait, I think so.
Huh?
It might have been worded the other way. 40 questions and
Oh,
35
it could have
minutes.
been. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see. I can look that up really quickly here to be sure, but I'm pretty sure that's right. 40 questions, 35 minutes. But I just put the 40 questions first. That's why it was confusing. Isn't it? There are four passages, 10 questions each. They're always in the same order. I don't think they changed this. Prose fiction, kind of like you're reading a novel or something. Social science, that would be like,
Statistics, basically.
um,
Like they
maybe,
extrapolated what people did when they went to this place and did
yeah,
this for this amount of time.
maybe. I think it could also include things like psychology and sociology and those kind of things. Yeah, a lot of statistics in that. Humanities probably include things like history and philosophy and arts, like music and art and those kind of things. Natural science, that would sound a whole lot like the science test, except they're not going to ask you to evaluate graphs and charts and that kind of stuff. It's just a reading section. Each passage is about 100 lines, about 1,000 words, so it's a fairly lengthy passage there. No particular order of difficulty. Don't worry about that. English and math you can think about, and science you can all think about personal order of difficulty. Although there is one thing you can do, maybe the next thing here. Questions are not in chronological order. They'll just be random questions. Now, decide which passage you read first. What, as you look at the four passages, if you find something that you think, well, wait a minute, I know something about this. Let's say you're kind of familiar with a little bit of chemistry as it relates to bonding and those kind of things. You could say, well, and they've got an article about that, or you're a little bit familiar with astronomy, and they've got an article about astronomy, or you're familiar with the history of the United States, and they've got a question about U.S. history on there. You know, if there's something you recognize, you say that I think I like this. I think I know a little bit about this. It might make it easier to read and understand what you're reading if you've already familiar with it. So you might want to do those first. If if you've got the four sections and one of them has big long paragraphs, you know, like two or maybe three big long paragraphs, and another one has 8 or 10 little short paragraphs. Usually it's easier to find things and answer the questions in little short paragraphs than it is the big long ones. You have to work your way through a lot of words sometimes, the big long ones, to find the answers. Just varies, but usually that's easier. Um, the questions you would probably want to answer first, some of the questions, the passage will be numbered. Like you can look at on the margin and see the line number. So, you know, you read through, you say, well, here's line 55, and it'll say a 55 right there. Here's line 60. You know, you can just count them very easily which line. So some of the questions will say, ask a question about a line number. Well, that's an easy question to answer usually, because you know exactly where to find the answer. You can go to that line number and check it out. So those would be great questions to ask to do first. Some of them have what we call great lead words. Lead words in our day, we would think about the words that you would Google to find information on what you're reading, the key words in a paragraph. So those are called lead words. And and if you look through and you see some really great keywords or lead words that are easy to find in that passage, you know, like maybe it's uppercase, and so you know they can find that pretty easily. So those can be easy to answer questions also. Short answers are better than long answers. So if you look at the 10 questions on this particular section and you got several of them that have really long A's and B's and C's and D's, you think that's going to be kind of wordy and take me some time to think through. I'll go for the short answers first, probably. Those are just some tips that'll help you in the reading to get rid of that time thing. Lead words, topics or questions, easy to spot in the passage, proper nouns, like a name or a place, dates, they're easy to find, unusual words, weird words, they're easy to find usually. No, it's because I moved that thing. Fetch, you know what fetch means. Go get it. When you tell your dog to fetch, you throw him something, he goes to get it, brings it back to you.
Some may use the answer, will say it right there, plain in text.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll ask you a question and you can go find the answer in the passage, just the question.
It's possibly a good idea when doing these to read, not necessarily read the entire thing and answer questions, but as you go along, read and answer at the same time.
I think so.
Because efficiency
Yeah.
is everything in this test.
Yeah, I think I would read the questions. I usually would scan the article kind of quickly, just kind of get an idea what it's about, and then look at those questions and see if the ones, the ones that tell me the
Yeah.
line numbers or go get an answer, and I can
Because I
find
had
it.
a test like a week and a half ago where
Mhm.
we had to do a reading passage for theme,
Mhm.
and I was like, well, I see these questions on here, and they look pretty straightforward. They're
Mhm.
not indecisive, they're not asking me for in text evidence. So I just read through and I say, oh, son's name, put it right there.
Mhm.
Why were they mad at him? Right here,
Yeah,
and so
yeah. That's the same idea. Now, some of them will make you think a little bit. Some of them won't be a just fetch the answer. You'll have to draw some conclusions, and those can be a little more difficult.
okay, most commonly passages.
Hmm. Needs some reason. That's my next thing. What does the author really mean? They could ask that question. What does the author mean when he says such and such and so and so? Or on line 15, what do you think the author meant by his question or something like that? So you got to analyze it a little bit. Easy to find the answer. Um, if it gives a line reference, it's going to be easy. I already talked about that. If it gives a great lead word, it's usually going to be kind of easy. So this is whether the question itself is easy or hard. If it says just find an answer. The answer to this question is in the passage. Just go look for it. That's usually kind of easy. If you're going to have to think about it for a while, what does the author mean by this? Those are a little bit more difficult. And so you can evaluate them on the basis of the quality of the question. Then you can evaluate it on how easy it is to find the answer. Some of them have line references or lead words. Those are easy. Some of them don't give you any clue. They just ask a question. You just know it's somewhere in that big long section, big long passage you're reading. So based on these questions right here, these things, you ask yourself, what am I going to go for first? And which questions am I going to answer first? So if it has a line reference and a great lead word, it's going to be easy to find. And if it's go get the answer, that's all they're asking for, and they give you an answer, that's the one you're going to do first. Those are going to be easy. So just do them right now. If it has a great reference and a lead word, but they're asking you to think about it, if you might do it right now, you can look at the reference or the lead word, and you might say, "Oh, I know the answer to that." We just do it. But if you don't know, you might say, "Well, let me think about that. Well, I'll go ahead and do some other stuff and get more familiar with this passage." If there is no line reference or lead word, if it's just a question that they don't point you to the paragraph or the passage at all, if it's a fetch question, maybe you'll do it later. You're going to do these first, where you have clear line references and lead words. They're almost always going to be first. But if you're pretty familiar with this thing, you might say, "No, I can do it right now. I can find the answer to this. I know uh, it's up there somewhere, and you're kind of familiar with it. If you can scan well, that's especially helpful." And then finally, some of them they don't give you a specific reference. They don't give you a lead word, but it's the kind of question you have to think through and analyze. Well, that's going to be last. Once you're more familiar with the whole passage, you do it last. Or don't do it at all if it looks really complicated. Okay. Students are different here, and we're all wired differently, I guess. Some people would rather read one passage very carefully and get all the questions on that passage that they can. Just focus on that passage until they've answered everything they can. Nothing wrong with that. That's probably the way I would do it. But there's also nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to go through all four of these passages and do the go fetch questions first. And I'm going to skip the tough question on all the passages and then come back to all the passages and do that later. To me, I don't like this. I'd rather just focus on one passage until I get the questions answered and move on. But some people want to do all the easy questions on the whole reading test first. It's okay. Get half of them right, you get a 29 when this scale came out a few years ago. So read the blurb at the top and look for important information about the passage if there's a little blurb there. And then you look over the questions. So you get kind of glance at it, look over the questions, decide on the questions that are going to be easy to answer, kind of what they're asking you. And then go back to the passage, skim through it. You might go ahead and get some of the answers to the fetch questions. Make little notes if you need to. If you recognize key lead words here in the questions, you're going to underline them in the passage when you see one of them. You're not reading it necessarily in great detail. If you can skim, that's good. If you can't skim, you can just kind of get the first sentences of each paragraph, and you'll get it better. Find the answers. Don't answer from memory. Read what you need to answer in your own words. Process of elimination. Read the blurb, get the main idea, quickly look over the questions, block the lead words, and line paragraph references. I said that. Think Google search. Which words would you Google to find the answer? All right, here we go. So here's a set of questions. You have not seen the paragraph. All you're seeing is a set of questions. Um, if you're going to mark those questions up based on what I've been saying, what kind of things might you underline?
If it says the paragraph indicates a paragraph, something about the paragraph, underline what they're trying to get out of it. Like paragraph 13, lines 83 to 80 indicates that Einstein different from Newton. In that Einstein, that would be what underline. Then looking at 32, the passage indicates after order of the four forces that exist in the universe, which is the strongest is, I underline that.
Okay, yeah,
Well, that's in italics, so you can just.
yeah. This might be, yeah, but you could underline it still. Your four forces, each strong, weakest, strong. Somewhere in in that passage, is going to talk about four forces and the weakest and strongest. You know, so that would be something you look for. You mentioned this one. They give you a paragraph number 13. So this is obviously going to be one that has a whole bunch of paragraphs. That would be a good one to do. And they give you line numbers, 83 to 88. They're going to direct you exactly where you need to go. Do you see any other things up there where they direct you exactly where you need to go?
Um, as it is Houston line 104,
Yeah, yeah, 38. They're directing you exactly. That's a line number.
35,
Yep, line 77, 78.
40.
Yep,
This will be the last
last
paragraph.
paragraph. Yep, very good, very good, very good. Now, what about keywords? You see any keywords? You see any keywords here?
Main points is a keyword.
Not really, because it's not going to talk about main points. This is one of those generic kind of questions that I would say to last, because then I've kind of understood it a little bit. So I'm one of the main points of the other formulas. They're trying to. You have to kind of understand the whole thing and say, okay, this is his main idea, but that's a general kind of question, so it's not specific and it doesn't point you specifically. I would save it to last. We've already talked about this one: four forces, weakest to strongest. Any keywords here?
Keyword being precise, or
Well, keywords are words where you might look in the paragraph to try to find the answer for this one. What words would you look for?
Einstein's theory of gravity.
Yeah, Einstein's theory of gravity, maybe Newton's, Newton Einstein theory of gravity. How about this one?
Stars and
Yep,
galaxies.
stars and galaxies, absolutely. Uh, what about that one?
Weak nuclear forces.
Weak nuclear forces. They're going to ask you a question about weak nuclear. You're going to have to find weak nuclear forces in that paragraph or that passage. Already answered that one and that one. Um, what about this question?
On 39, a keyword which would the author agree with?
Mm,
Or
Yeah, I don't think you could say there's a key word there because they're not going to mention. Well, a key word is something they talk about. Now, this is a general. This is like this one. It's a general question about you know those two would be kind of similar. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
They don't give you a word to look for. You just got to understand the passage. And of course, you already answered 42, the last paragraph. So I think I marked it up. I didn't mark everything, but you get the idea. There's a key word, of course. But 31 and 39, I would say to last. Okay. Now, skim the passage. You've looked at the questions. Skim the passage, and don't take long. If you find it difficult, don't worry about it. Just keep going. You're not going to want to get yourself bogged down. Mark the key words you found in the questions, lead words, and here's a sample passage. Okay. Now, 37. We've already looked at this. Answer this. Look at that question right now, and look at your material there. and see if you can kind of, in your own words, figure out how Einstein differed from Newton. Okay. Um, so the question is, how is Einstein differing from Newton? What's the difference, and what's different about them? Where can you find the answer? Paragraph 13. So, in your own words, try to come up with an answer. Did you read it enough to come up with kind of an answer in your own words? How they're different?
Came up with the idea of the general theory of relativity.
Yeah.
Is that the answer?
Well, you're going to have to see in just a minute, but that's something you could say. But the question is, how are they different? So you want to say, well, what's the difference
They
between Newton?
differ in treating gravity differently, and
That's right.
Newton's general theory of relativity never treats gravity as a force.
Hmm. And Einstein based it on curvature of space and time. All right, now that you've done that on your own without even looking at the answers, here are the choices.
See?
Yep, yep, that's the way you do it. So this helped you. So you don't really know what's in that whole thing. You haven't read it, but this directed you to the lines, and it gave you a question, and you could look at that paragraph and get the answer. And you, in the process, you're getting familiar with it, but you've already got one of the questions answered. Okay. So when they say things like according to the passage, they say go fetch, go find the answer. The passage the author states or indicates or offers, those are probably going to be easy to find. And of course, if they're short answers to questions, it'll be easier. So this is one of those generic questions. According to the passage, Einstein's theory of gravity is more precise than Newton's because. So this is something you can, why is Einstein's
What's
theory?
being asked why
Hmm.
Einstein's is more precise than Newton's.
Right, right. Now, can you find the answer in that? Uh,
Same area or?
yeah, I would think so because you already looked and found it. He's talking about Einstein and Newton's, and according to it, it's more precise. And why is it more precise? You may have to read a little bit this time. So are you looking kind of at those last paragraphs there? Is that mainly where you're focusing? Okay, that's good. Because that's where he's talking about comparing Newton and Einstein.
I think I have an answer because it's talking about the mercury.
Yeah.
orbit,
Okay.
And that shows because how it's more precise he was able to figure out the gravitational pull
Hmm.
of Mercury,
Yep.
but Newton's classical could
Yep.
not.
I think you're right. I think you're on the right track there. Uh, so you've already done this, but I'm just suggesting here that you'd look for Einstein's theory of gravity, and it shows up, you know, theory of gravity in that paragraph we've already looked at, line 83. So you read that whole section. All right. So which answers do you think?
As D or wait.
Read them all. This is the same question. You realize that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it D?
Yeah, yeah. You said that. You said it. You said it predicted the orbit of Mercury more precision. That's exactly what it
You
is.
said read it again. So
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I said read it again because you said B, didn't you, at
I
first?
said D the first time.
Oh, I thought you said B. That's why I said read it again. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. Yeah. I thought you said B, and I thought that's strange he'd say B because he already answered the question when he didn't see the answers. Okay. Your hearing was bad. Sorry. Reasoning questions that give line numbers are probably now questions. If it gives a line number, it's most of the time I'm going to go ahead and try to answer it because I know where it's at. Although they may be a little harder. Uh, Let me just look at line 77 and 78, and then I'll show you the answers. Okay, you ready to look at the questions, at the
Yeah, the
answers?
answers.
Yeah.
B.
I think you're right.
Because none of these other ones state motion,
Hmm.
and that's what's stated
Mm,
here.
yeah. Notice that this is important that he stated it in line 77, 78. He did not like what he saw, so you can find it there in 77, 78. But the answer to this question is not in 77, 78. You have to read on to find out why, what he meant by that. You have to read on to get that, and that's in lines 80 and 81. Okay. When there's a question where you're asking to reason something out, and these are usually harder, they'll use the word infer. What might you infer? Or what might he infer? Means most likely means what? What does he mean this? Does he mean that? You have to figure out what it means, or suggest, implies, purpose, function, characterize, describe. These are all words that mean you got to think about this and think about what he's suggesting, what he's implying, what the purpose of this is. How would you characterize, or how would he characterize this? That kind of stuff. Those are thinking questions. You got to mull it over. What the author would agree with or disagree with is a common question. So this one's pointing you to the last paragraph.
G is wrong.
Okay, I agree.
J.
I think Jay's the best choice here too. It does.
General relativity was explained much more needed. I don't think so, because there's still some parts that weren't explained.
Yeah, yeah, and we don't know what then was intended. I mean, what was intended? I mean, there's no.
Scientific theory can
Yeah,
be used to develop. It didn't really.
that's irrelevant to this paragraph, especially. Yeah, and yeah, I think you're right. And it's true, the similarities between Einstein and Newton are strong in a way. I mean, they both got the right answers on everything except Mercury, but that's not the point. Yeah, that's not the point. Yeah, I said, are you talking about Newton and Einstein look alike? Or no, I don't think so. I mean, it's just a vague question, the similarities. Yep.
For the word animal, animals.
It's pronounced anomalous. They've accent,
Anomalous,
yeah.
which nearly means
But you don't have to worry about the pronunciation, of course, on the test.
is that precession or precision?
Precession.
Okay.
Precession. Um, I'll explain it in a minute, but I'll go ahead and let you.
I wonder if it's G. Because
Okay.
it doesn't sound, is it G?
I think so. Yeah. Now, this is one of those questions where it would help if you happen to be familiar with the word anomalous, which you may not be. It's a new word to you. But anomalous does mean abnormal. So, if you happen to, yeah. Um, but when he says he found his general relativity gave exactly the right answer, including a complete accounting for the anomalous precession. It was unusual. None of the other planets showed it, so Mercury's on one, so it means it was abnormal. It was different. Precession uh, has to do with as it orbits the sun, it's changing slightly from year to year, from orbit to orbit, based on some other factor that it's like it's showing a regular but strange change from year to year that Newton couldn't quite predict and Einstein could. Here's a suggestion. You could try reading it again with the different words. You could say he found that general relativity gave exactly the right answer, including a complete accounting for the universal precession, for the abnormal precession. That makes sense. For the insufficient precession, for the magnetic. You can substitute those words and see which one sounds like it might make some sense. And abnormal is the one. Yeah. Here's another one.
Is this something you can find where we've been, or is it something?
Yeah, you're gonna have to look over the whole passage now, but you're looking for a key word. Weak nuclear forces is what you're looking for here. So you're gonna have to find where does it talk about weak nuclear forces and give the
35, line 35.
well, yeah, maybe, but maybe some more too. You kind of need
It
to look.
says unlike the strong but nuclear forces like
Yeah. So it's starting to talk about electromagnetic forces in 35.
force, gravity, weak, unlike electromagnetic forces or resonance. Weak nuclear force is a short range force.
Okay.
So F would be the answer.
Now be careful. Which of the following are true except what you got that's why they capitalize it, uppercase that word except. So they're saying all the following are true. Three of them are true. One of them is not true about weak nuclear forces. So you're trying to find the one that's not true.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
saying they're short range forces means they're not long range forces, which G is not the answer. Or G is the answer. I'm going to say F's not the answer.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me say this first. You're looking at two questions here that are exact opposites, right?
Yes.
So one of them probably is the correct answer.
And that's the short range is correct, so they are not long range
Yeah.
forces.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can't be short and long at the same
Yeah.
time. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So when you see two things that are mutually exclusive like that, they can't both. I mean, one of them's got to be false. One of them's got to be false.
Yeah, and then
Then
you see they're not directly related to the astronomical phenomenon. It doesn't take more than 2 seconds of looking at that to notice that if there are two that go that are the same thing but differ,
yeah,
and it's most likely between them.
that's right. That's right. You without even reading these, you can just about eliminate them. It turns out these are both true, yeah, but all of these are true. So the question is which one of these is true. Okay. Uh, okay, so there you go. We'll stop there. Anything else you need to say? Okay. Father, thank you for this time we've had together. Thank you for the way these guys are working on this stuff and trying to learn it. Thank you for all your blessings. Thank you for being so good to us all the time, Lord. Help us to be full of thanksgiving, not just at Thanksgiving time of the year, but all the time. Help us to have hearts that are overflowing with thanksgiving and gratitude for all your many, many blessings. We want to represent you well. We want to bring you glory and honor. We want our lives to be all about you. So teach us how to live that way. And I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.